since we want to keep on the topic of how to stage Wagner, the discussion we had reminded me very much of a conversation, or shall we have an argument, I had with Nike Wagner more than 10 years ago when she was also a visiting professor here in Oxford. And she is very much, as many of you will know, in favor of staging things differently. And me, just because I'm a historian, and also just to be obtuse, I argued, but shouldn't we, just for the sake of seeing it, staging Wagner's opera, Wagner's Ring especially, really with all the stage descriptions intact? So having a real bear for Siegfried, and doing all the things with the door and the tree and everything, and the sword in Valkyrie. And having the costumes from the time, of course we know Wagner hated them, but this is what everybody was used at the time, so it would be a proper 1870s experience. And I thought, but wouldn't that be much more disturbing and upsetting to our modern understanding of Wagner? Wouldn't we just be, in the scene in Siegfried, wouldn't we just stop listening to the music when the bear comes on stage and just start watching the bear and see how it behaves or misbehaves? And animals have a tendency to misbehave on stage because they also suffer from stage fright. So, and this is of course a point that Suzanne has made. Isn't opera in its proper historical setting so alien to our modern conventions of seeing and hearing, that going back to whatever an authentic staging of Wagner might have looked like or sounded like in 1876 would be just as upsetting as the latest Herrheim or Karsdorff or whatever production.
Matthew.
Well, that was very nicely prepared, so I don't know if I have something to quite match up. I think one of the things that I should like to talk about as we get further into the discussion is to bring it back to some earlier threads which we had earlier today and yesterday, especially in the professor's lecture, about the craft of conducting and what it means not only to be a conductor in the pit and on the concert stage. And I think I would be very interested to hear more about the difference that you feel between those two places, but also what it meant for you to be learning the craft of conducting whilst you're learning the music. And one person about whom we haven't heard a whole lot yet is Herbert von Karajan. And I would be very interested as we get further into this to speak a little bit more about Maestro Karajan and what that tutelage was. Because I think for a lot of us as we grow up as instrumentalists especially, we have the notion very early on of lineage sort of hammered into us. And you know who your teacher is and who their teacher was, and sometimes the next generation and the generation prior. And in the 20th century and in the 19th century especially, there are lineages of conductors. And so coming from that lineage, in a sense, I'd be interested to hear you speak about that.
So we have two very clearly defined avenues of discussion. We continue where we were this afternoon with Regeltheater and how Barbara has just introduced that. And then we also consider issues of the Kapellmeister conductor and so on. Could I, Professor Thielemann, ask you now to carry on from where we were this
for
afternoon?
both.
Because I know you want to talk about the Herrheim Parsifal.
No, I wanted to refer to that what you said in your comment. I think the problem of everybody who works daily with this stuff, with operas and hears them over and over again, like certain symphonies, gets to the point in which one is a little bit fed up with everything and is prepared for new things because you have heard nearly everything. You have heard the older productions on YouTube or on the compact disc and you have seen so many productions. And what I now noticed in revisiting this Parsifal 8 minutes excerpt, I remember how the production was made because I was there in Bayreuth during this period, and I have attended many rehearsals, and I forgot about all these details. And while I was watching, you know what happens then? You go, aha, they are marching soldiers, know how somehow what that means. Okay, what is he doing? Oh, he's now with the soldiers inside, making the then he's going. During that, I have not listened properly to the music, because that is impossible. Yes. That is, for me, impossible. You can do that. No. And then I said, yeah, he stays in the tempo. He didn't make the ritardando I would make, or this. But for me, it is sometimes, it happens to me that I feel that I cannot watch everything with the same intensity. Let's put it like that, yeah? If I follow every regie detail, which is nearly impossible in this production, you have to see that 4, 5, 6, 7 times, and then you have not seen all, because it's so well worked and there's so much going on contemporarily, you know, with films and everything. And this is quite interesting. And sometimes when I remember when I saw it the first time, I wondered, who is this woman in the bed during the prelude? And asked the assistant, said, ja, wer ist denn das eigentlich? And they said, yeah, you know, that's Herze. Ach, Herzeleide, ach ja. Mm-hmm. She dies. Okay, I got it. This is very much, yeah. The better you know the piece, the more you see it, then you can look more to the details. And when you know how the conductor conducted it, you can also be a little bit less concentrated on the music, and you look very, I mean, I want to see anything I can see of these details, but I do not have the same intensity to follow both.
That may be a problem inherent in the Gesamtkunstwerk, I suppose, yeah. as Wagner conceived it. It was already bringing together a number of arts, so you're bound to have this separation of tension.
Yeah, but is then too much going on? I wanted only to say, probably as a little critique, yeah, only a little, just to say, if there is too much going on, also from my experiences as a conductor with Regisseuren, yeah, you can have a very happy collaboration. When a regisseur, when I now last summer, yeah, with Katharina Wagner's Tristan, for me it was very happy because we spoke before about places in which she admits that the music is so strong that one reduces a little bit the speed on stage. What is happening? Yeah, so that the public is, that is one of these places one has to listen to. Other places are filled with more action. You know what I mean?
But I think it's also important to challenge the traditional hierarchy of music and drama or text. We can't necessarily assume that the music contains everything and should have priority. Wagner certainly didn't think that. As we know, for him it was the drama, by which he meant the visual spectacle as well as the music together, which was of all importance. And he said it doesn't matter how well they sing, how well they play, if the drama itself, if the singing actor doesn't convey what I want to convey, then it's useless.
I don't agree totally. I have to say, I think there are so powerful passages in the music that if you close your eyes and you do not see what is going on of wonderful stage arrangements and direction and set, then the music is already enough. You know, for example, this Selig im Glauben, when the male chorus and then they get higher and higher and higher. Today I don't even remember when the women come in, and they come only in at a certain point and then they take over. You know, this is already something which distracts me very much from watching what is going on, because my ear is very open. I think, the basses are singing, the tenors, and it goes into the alti, and then the sopranos take over. This is a masterpiece. Yeah? It's a masterpiece of instrumentation, of course, instrumentation. So sometimes for me, it seems to be that there is very much going on.
Isn't there so much going on in the score itself? I mean, one could equally argue, I suppose, that there's so much going on you can't possibly apprehend it all at the same time, which of course is true. These works are so rich that the more times you hear them, the more you see something different. Well, why should the same not be true of a production?
Yeah, I wanted to say that if it is contemporarily with the scene and the pit, you are totally right. Yeah, in the pit is much going on, and you discover always new things. You discover also new things in this production, the Herrheim production. So, I mean, how many ears, how many eyes do I have? This is getting difficult. I don't know, or my intelligence is not enough developed to get that contemporarily. I must say, for me, it is a little bit too much video, age of video. You know, until 15 years ago, a pop song was a pop song. Yes, if you now listen to the old David Bowie things, there was no picture, and you see him probably only with his hair and all these things. But there is no video in these years. Yeah? But you listened to them, to the Beatles or to whatever, and there's no video necessary. And then the video era began. And now every pop song there is a little story going on. And we are so used to see these things contemporarily. How is that called? Multitasking or so. Yeah? I'm doing my office on the phone, and I'm talking to you, and I write something, and then we say, yeah, we go something to eat, have something to eat afterwards, and so. Also, ich weiß nicht. Sometimes I think my concentration does not allow me the full intensity. Yeah, that is the only thing I would say that is sometimes difficult for me. If I draw my full attention to that what is going on, because it is masterly, it is a masterpiece. Yeah, from all. I know how difficult it was. Yeah, and you are completely right. Only the connection with the music, sometimes difficult.
But I mean, something.
Can I make a point?
Of course.
Please do, yes. Please.
What about the audience? I mean, if you're a bit confused, what about the audience?
Yeah.
Sitting umpteen yards away, you can't really see a lot of detail.
Yeah, that is what I meant when I said that we are, you as I am, and other people who are our daily bread, yeah, is Parsifal in a certain way, yeah. Not for the normal theater goer. It's not your daily bread. You know, you say, oh, again Parsifal after I don't know how many years, and you listen probably before to a CD at home, and you think, oh, I'm so happy that I listen and I see Parsifal. This is very much for them, you know, and it began already with the Ring. Therefore, also many now. No one is shocked about the Ring because it has become a part of history and so. But I think the shocking thing was not only the Dirty Rhine and the Rhine maidens as prostitutes and whatever. That was one thing. The other thing was that so much was going on, because at the old Wieland times, there were, you know, you see these photos and there's nothing on stage. Everything is blue, and then Brünnhilde lies in the back on the. I don't know what they did on stage. We have never seen that.
That increase in naturalism was in tune with our times. As you say, it's the video age and so forth.
Yeah.
And it's surely right for these production style to evolve in a way that provides these contemporary resonances.
So long as it doesn't distract.
But why is distraction such a bad thing? I mean, if I go to a concert, of course I try my best to concentrate on the music, but often it's at the end of a long day, and all my to-do list keeps sort of rattling through my mind, which is not the fault of the musicians. And also, you look at the performers, and you start noticing, wow,
that somebody sweats.
The second violin. One of the second violinists.
It's good looking or whatever, yeah.
I was talking about strange bowing, but and this is actually a kind of distraction which Wagner very much criticized in his Beethoven essay, which Roger has so wonderfully translated. And Wagner, this was in 1870, just as he was trying to work out the mechanics of the Festspielhaus. And he said, oh, but even going to a concert and having to see all these ugly people blowing into their trumpets and fiddling and scraping and scratching their backs and scratching their whatever. This is so it distracts me from my wonderful Beethoven symphony. I don't want to see them. I want to be in a state of clairvoyance. And then he goes and builds the Festspielhaus, which is really at least 50% about getting the visuals just right. And so it's Wagner was in two minds. Do we need the visuals for the drama, or are the visuals a distraction from the wonderful music? He never really decided, do I want to be Beethoven's era? Do I want to be the forefather of MTV? I mean, it's really... So what do you say about his Wagner's occasional disillusionment with visuals altogether when he says, why can't I have the invisible opera house, the invisible stage?
That's ironic.
And I mean, you're very much an opera conductor, so What is it that is actually, despite all the distraction, what's good about it?
Yes, he was being ironic there. I mean, he was dissatisfied with the theatre of his time, of course, and he very much wanted something put on stage that would bring out the essence of the drama, but he didn't want to see those wretched costumes that he hated, or that production style, which even he could see was obsolete.
I think if it comes to a certain point in which too many things, everybody is different. There are some people who like that I mean, you can say I drive my car, and I'm not fully concentrated, then things get really dangerous, if you're not fully, even if you are fully concentrated, there can always, something can happen, which is can end rather unpleasantly. And for me it is a concert, I don't know, I don't look so much to the stage. I'm not interested if somebody sweats or whatever. So in a concert it is more a mechanic thing. I see an orchestra, it's a pianist and they are far away, and somehow at theater it's a different thing, you're right. And I think Wagner was not really clear with it, what he really wanted. He was also trying things out. And the Festspielhaus maybe also, that he was not satisfied with the first festival because of the whole production and everything. So who knows what you would have changed, but I cannot imagine that. I mean, there is a human limit for my opinion. There's a limit. You come to a point in which you cannot concentrate contemporarily with the same intensity on two things. You can you have a telephone, or you have the Freisprech, so the telephone is here, I speak. I can contemporarily type into the computer and I see something and I do an email. Good. We meet tomorrow. You're right. So, and I do that. And probably then there's music playing at the background. It's already did. You go to a shop, buy some jeans or whatever, and say, my God, this music, it drives me crazy. It's so loud. So you say to the shopkeeper, you must have a hard time here with the music. And then they say, so the classical sentence is, I don't hear it anymore. Then one would say, why don't you switch it off if you don't hear it anymore? So, but it is now of the music or in a film, a film, movie. There is what is happening. Car is driving. There is the music. There is the noise of the car, everything, and then probably also a text. Either the four things contemporarily.
So I think what you're saying perhaps is that one needs to realize these works in a way that makes sense for our time. There seems to be no problem with, say, Shakespeare, for the sake of argument. It's interesting to see how it would have been done at the Globe or wherever. These so-called authentic productions may be of interest, but nobody seriously argues that that's the only way to do it. So why should the way that Wagner might have seen it on stage and we know didn't approve of, why should that be the only way of doing it? Surely things move on. Theatrical developments happen in such a way that after Brecht and Pirandello and the rest of the people I mentioned, Meta Theatre, this is how we approach theatre today. These are theatrical experiences for a modern audience.
What means modern? You know what? It's disturbing if one says modern. What is modern? I think 100 years ago they said already, in the modern times we are always modern. My God, are we modern? And I don't even know all the Beethoven string quartets so well as I would like to know them. The Haydn clavier trios or the Bach cantatas, and so. I'm totally confused inside myself, and sometimes I don't know where I should draw my attention to, because there are so many things which are of excellent quality. Think about paintings. I mean, all the wonderful things you can see in galleries and museums, a life is not enough to see that, and you watch also, as we do, a Parsifal more often. We discover always something new. So if you now look again to a very famous painting, then the next time you discover something else. I mean, it's for me, for the conductor, I look again to a score, again and again and again. I've done it the last time, I don't know, years ago. and I read it again, and I think, this pizzicato here, I've never noticed that it is a double. Probably I've noticed, but it didn't come so much to my attention. But this time I will keep an eye on it, or an ear on it, and then the pizzicato is clearer than it used to be, or the fortepiano. And these scores are so rich, and the music, and that is what sometimes really disturbs me with productions where too much is going on. The music is so powerful sometimes that for me it's enough. It's already so much going on, also emotionally. Don't forget, I mean, we are now always talking about intelligent watching. We analyze. This is the big thing. Everything has to be analyzed. We have to know why Wagner did this and that. Probably he didn't really know why. I would say, because I like to do it. I don't know, came into my mind. So, and we want to analyze everything, but I think sometimes if the Tristan prelude goes on, you sit here and you think, I don't want to see anything. I want to close my eyes. Good when I not have to conduct. I can just listen. If I have to conduct, I have to see that the winds are together and the shallows and everything. Sometimes it is for me too much. I have to admit that.
But what you're bringing out in your interpretations and what Strauss was bringing out in that Tristan is something that Wagner himself may not have been aware of even.
Das stimmt.
This is the fascinating, and it's precisely because Wagner's works are so comprehensive and encyclopedic and, as you say, rich, that one it seems to almost oblige this kind of a similar kind of.
I tell you something. I think that Strauss conducting was so interesting for one thing too, because he avoids too much intensity with his faster tempi. Yeah.
The way he moved on.
Natürlich.
Close the gaps between
and he would not use up his forces too soon. Yeah, he just goes over some. It's a very clever conducting, very, very clever conducting, and it is that what you think constantly about, because all the music, but this music particularly is particularly loaded with high energy. Yeah, it is such an energetical music, and it's drug dealers. I feel like a drug dealer. Yeah, I give this drug to the public. Yeah, and the orchestra, they have to be together. They will not enjoy so much. I enjoy a little bit. You have to enjoy. You sit there and think, oh my God, that's well conducted or not, and that is. But the intensity is sometimes so high. Of a Generalpause. Yeah, think about what I always thought is there. Walküre, for example. Nur eines will ich noch, das Ende. Das Ende. Because it goes, all the hair goes up. If you don't hold this pause long enough, then you have ruined the whole scene. Yeah. So, but this is so. I don't want to see something on stage.
But traditionally, Tristan has been conducted in a very different way, of course, with maximum intensity and long, drawn-out, different tempi altogether. But Roger made the very interesting point this morning of the possible ancestry of this interpretation back through Bülow to Wagner's intentions themselves. So, what we heard this morning, those of us who were here, was possibly the way Wagner wanted it. For, if that means. I don't know, that's the ultimate aim in any case, but what we've heard is something very different from the way it's been played in recent decades.
You're right.
For 50,
You're right.
60 years.
Yeah.
Of course, there's something that there's an area where Wagner himself demonstrates a wonderful ambivalence about music in the theatre, and that's in the issue of preludes with the curtain down, which you rarely see in the theatre now. Mostly any director nowadays will normally stage an overture. But of course Wagner, it's still by Bayreuth sometimes you can see a Vorspiel with the curtains down. And of course there is this, there's this wonderful book by my friend Chris Morris called Reading Opera Between the Lines, which is about orchestral interludes, particularly in Wagnerian opera. Now, of course, Wagner himself, he writes wonderfully about his own overtures, and he reads the Lohengrin overture as a kind of vision of angels coming down from heaven. But clearly that's something that is, as it were, open to us all. all, this issue of reading the music in the theatre, which directors now are very, very nervous about. Then, of course, Wagner himself is ambivalent about it, because later on, even in Rheingold, of course, he has the orchestral interludes, which are when we're intended to see everything moving up or down as we go up and down in cinematic fashion. And then, of course, you get to Parsifal, and he has the moving scenery. So we have a sense of a symphonic interlude where we are actually seeing something. So there's a wonderful ambivalence about music nakedly heard in a darkened theatre without things happening. Nowadays, directors are very anxious to have things happening, but it's sort of it's going on in Wagner himself in a way.
Could I just ask then, you said this morning that Lohengrin is the one opera that you have not yet conducted in Bayreuth, and presumably will at some point.
18, yeah.
Will you have the curtain down for the prelude?
Yes.
Or do you know?
I had also the curtain down for the prelude of Tristan this year, and with Katharina Wagner, we had discussed that. No, we didn't even discuss it, because she says, I have 4 hours and I have much work to do on stage. So you can have these 20 minutes, and I'm happy that I don't have to do anything. Yeah. Was for me, it was wonderful. No, I usually insist.
20 minutes?
No, 12 or something. Together with Act 3.
Oh, right.
With Act 3. No, and also Act 2. We said no. It is, if Wagner writes Vorhang auf, this is a musical advice. It's like if he writes piano and forte. So that's my conviction. Now I did a production of Hänsel und Gretel with Adrian Noble in Vienna. And there we opened the curtain a little earlier and showed a family in a Victorian living room looking with a Laterna Magica to the 2 photos. And then at the end, the 2 children, Hänsel and Gretel, went into the forest, which was so moving and so wonderfully done, a fairy tale. So these things, you can have exceptions, but there was, for example, this Götz Friedrich production in Berlin with the Lohengrin, which I conducted at the Deutsche Oper several times. So there was Elsa coming, the curtain went up, and you saw from backstage Elsa looking for something, and she came, and obviously during this wonderful prelude, everybody looked, what is she doing? She's then you think, who is she looking for? I mean, this one has not to be very clever to find that out, but for me it was disturbing.
Well, I saw the Beito Freischütz in Berlin, where you have during the overture a boar on stage, which was also looking for something, which is actually a problem that was never resolved within the opera.
Natürlich, but you know, Freischütz Overture is one of the most important pieces of music ever written, yeah, and how you can ruin that by I would not. I must say that I'm quite strict. I'm sorry. Freischütz Overture, I don't want to have commented. It's my comment, and then it's his or her turn. And I think one can do these things. One can speak about that. Freischütz, you know, what is ein Vorspiel, yeah, or an overture? You have to. What is it for? Yeah, obviously, people don't think about what this music is for. It's also a very simple thing. You come into the theater, you have done your daily work, and you sit down and so Meistersinger, aha. And in this wonderful, you go to Meistersinger. But these 12 minutes or 13 minutes or 14 minutes of Vorspiel to Meistersinger bring you into the mood and into the world, the musical world of Meistersinger. When the Meistersinger prelude is over, and then, I mean, it's a coup de théâtre, yeah? The curtain goes up and zack, and the chorale comes. I mean, this is spoiled if you have it open before. Yeah? It has to open very quickly at the end. Da, 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 zack, goes auf. Yeah? Und dann, der Choral. Breathtaking. Yeah? I mean, Wagner was not stupid. He was not stupid. And the Lohengrin is the same. Yeah? You see somebody comes, the angels come down, or whatever you think, and it's the whole instrumentation. First the high register, and then you go down, 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 big orchestra, climax, and at the end he disappears. This is once the opera. what's going to happen? The Ortrud scenes are not there, and so they will come later. Tannhäuser, I mean, it's one of the most glorious pieces of music. So if I want to hear that, I would close the eyes and I would be terribly distracted. But with a Parsifal, this was a little bit different, that because it's a very slow and one knows it well, and if not so much is happening, so there might be some cases in which one could agree to do that. Aber ein Tristan-Vorspiel, sorry. It's my business.
Can we just go back a little bit, just pick you up on what you said about the Freischütz overture, one of the most important pieces ever written. Furtwängler would have agreed with that. Can you tell me why? Tell us why.
Yeah, but because it is the beginning of nature and of, I mean, that's der deutsche Wald, yeah? That is that what I spoke with Adrian about that. He said it is, we spoke about Hänsel und Gretel in your country, yeah? And I said, is it as known as it is in Germany? And he said, no, not so much. And he said, yeah, but why? Yeah, he said, yeah, because it is playing im Wald, in the woods. And England is not the country of the woods. It's parks and other beautiful things. But it's more associated with Germany and with this feeling, the romantic, yeah, Caspar David Friedrich, und so weiter, und so weiter.
Brothers Grimm.
You know that, you know the ruin, the Gothic ruin in the forest, and so, yeah. And this is a typical feeling, and in this time, and Weber describes that so masterly, yeah, with the beginning, with the horns, and then when you feel that the bad guy Samiel is going with the pizzicati, I mean, it's breathtaking, yeah. And I think it draws, if it is conducted well, it is always a big success. People love it very much. And then don't forget at the end this fortissimo after the long Generalpause. How much has Wagner taken from Weber? Everything in a certain way. Yeah? I mean, these ideas are breathtaking, yeah. And it has so much to do with nature, description of nature. Yeah? It's like Mendelssohn, Sommernachtstraum, yeah? With the flutes and the winds at the beginning, and then the violins. I mean, you feel you don't have to explain anything, but if you listen to it, you can make your own, have your own ideas of what is going on. But there is a real description of nature, and I think that is something. Some moment before the opera begins to, I'm now in the story. Now I'm ready for when the overture is over, and that is the sense of an overture. Nein?
Yes. Can we? You were just talking about Das Ende in Walküre, and you were talking about various matters of technique, really. And this brought me back in my mind to what you were talking about yesterday, and what I'm sorry we didn't have time to go into more details this morning, but we ran out of time. And this is the whole issue of Kapellmeister. And this is coming to what Matthew introduced.
Yeah. I wanted to. Yeah.
That must be a matter. I mean, that's a matter of technique, isn't it? Knowing how long to
Natürlich,
hold.
Yeah.
Is it simply a matter of judgment or whatever?
You know, it has to do with technique. Also, if you have, let's say, theater blood in your body, yeah. I mean, you know, when in Lohengrin, she finally asks him, "Who are you?" Yeah, in the Brautgemach, and then there is this long pause when Telramund tries to kill Lohengrin, and Lohengrin kills Telramund. There's this ugly fortissimo at the end, and there's nothing. And everybody thinks, oh my God, what is going to happen? And after a while, there's only the timpani. Bo. Bo, 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 bo. Bo. And the shelley. Nun ist all unser Glück dahin. I mean, you have to hold it as long as you... I have a kind of... try to develop a feeling how long you can hold it, that you feel that in the audience behind me, the kind of... Yeah? And there are some places, for example, in Meistersinger, before the quintet, Yeah, famous. There's one bar empty, and then probably the most beautiful Übergang Wagner has ever written, but as beautiful as Brangenes Nachtruf. Yeah? But going to the quintet, die selige Morgentraum-Deutweise, harmonies he has invented. And I always thought, I must make this bar, which is only one bar, I must make kind of 2 bars, Pause, that they now, after many hours of music in the public, that they know, oh, what's going on? And the next tone which comes, the chord of the winds, therefore ist eine Generalpause, ja? And therefore Wotan says, noch eines will ich noch, das Ende, aus would not be the same as you say, das Ende, and you wait until you find something cracks in the floor and so. And then das Ende, with a low tuba section, then C minor, das ist was, yeah? But you have to judge from yourself, and that has to do with craftsmanship. If you do too much, then you spoil the whole thing. Yeah. Then you have really a big disaster. It's a disaster, yeah? And only because you asked about Karajan, I've always thought when you see, yeah, in this case, you see an older conductor, an old conductor. Most of them who I have seen and heard, they did not move anymore so much. And for various reasons. But they did not have to. But it's nothing what you can imitate when you are a younger conductor. You told me yesterday about the Dirigentenkurs. Did you? We tried the same thing and the different. Yeah. So if an older conductor conducts with not much movement, and they play beautifully, then you step in front of the orchestra and you do the same, and they say, "My God, is he boring? He has not." Yeah. No temperament, no something like that, right? Because if you see, there are some nice Karajan, early Karajan pictures. He was moving a lot when he was younger, a lot. And he was very aware of that it was good and very nice to see for the public. Then you get older and you think you must have also more concentration. And I must say, so in my age, I mean, I'm still quite young for a conductor, but I feel also that some things which I always felt I didn't get somehow, yeah? In the years in which I have done Tristan from the first to the last notes with full energy, yeah? I could have done it after a second time, yeah? I had so much power in me and so much fire. And now I feel I have the same knowledge, I have more knowledge, and I try to, why have I been so often, I've been so unsatisfied with myself. I thought, you should have done there more and that. And then I came to the conclusion, yeah, you have to hold back better before and then go to this point. What you should not lose is when you hold back is the tension. Yeah? A pianissimo is more difficult than a forte. A pianissimo with tension, yeah, because the tension or the attention remains for 250%. You have to keep that, and therefore Parsifal is so difficult. If you fall into this trap of slow tempi and people are not satisfied with the prelude, and the thing goes on, and you think, oh my God, how can I survive this first act? And this has it, and I must say, when you come back to older conductors, they know that. Yeah? And when I watched Karajan and watched Böhm and Jochum, they just had this fluidum around them. Oh, I know that, and I've done that so often and so many times, and I avoid certain things. It's like with older pianists. Yeah? Now you hear, I remember doing with Paulini some years ago, Brahms in Dresden, and the first Brahms concerto was quite a thing, for the orchestra, and then usually the pianists give what they have and so on. And he didn't, so he is also a certain age, don't forget. But he plays it in a way
And that comes, I think, also to a question about maintaining that intensity, about pacing, especially in a 3-hour, 4-hour opera. Yeah. And how do you, because part of the pacing can be determined in the way that you work with the director and in the way that the staging is done and the way that the set is done. And to this point of how the visual on the stage has so much to do with building the intensity and the long line of the music drama. But at the end of the day, in the performance, it's coming from the pit, that pacing, do you think? And how do you stay alive
not necessarily. No, I tell you, if it is a bad staging, boring staging, the staging can even ruin my interpretation. Yeah? If there is without much tension on stage, for example, first act of Walküre. Yeah, with all these Generalpausen, which are you have to do them, otherwise it is. But they have a sense. If these 3 people or 2 people, then at the end they have to look at each other, or they don't look at each other. They move or they don't move. It is a very tricky thing because everybody admires first act of Walküre, but be honest. What you are waiting for is the very end. You are, or the Schwertmonolog, yeah? When Hunding goes to bed, then first act of Walküre begins, be honest.
I don't know, in the recent Covent Garden production, John Tomlinson was playing Hunding, and his singing wasn't probably what it was 50 years ago or whatever, but he was sitting there at the desk, at the table, eating a bowl of porridge. And I've never seen anybody eating a bowl of porridge with such menace. It was just, and that's what you describe. He was just sitting there, quite still, eating, glowering at these 2 young people, knowing exactly what's going on, and occasionally he was growling in C minor, and it was, and that's exactly. I think that's what you mean. It's this intensity. It's not that you do a lot and you have a lot of chicken running through the background, but it's
no. Yeah, you're right, and that can ruin my interpretation, and then I have to do more because I feel if there is the interruption in the music, not only a Generalpause, there is 1 bar without music. There's these interludes. Da 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 di da 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 di da di da di. Ja, mein Gott, ich kann da gar nichts machen. Yeah? I'm not doing anything. I conduct it in 3, and if I do it slower or faster, it doesn't help anybody. There I need very much the scene and very much a proper work on stage. And
if you don't get that?
ja, dann wird es, ja, then it's really bad. And it happened to me too, or if you do it in a repertoire performance, which I try to avoid, because there are not so many rehearsals for that. But it can be that sometimes in the very evening, yeah, with people who have had only one little rehearsal at a piano thing, and then they come to the stage and they are so loaded with tension that something happens which you wouldn't have expected, but you cannot count on that. Usually, it's not, and it's right. Sometimes some stage directors don't have the talent for. You have to choose them if they have the talent to, for example, to do this wonderful long duet at the end of Walküre between Wotan and Brünnhilde. This is certainly not easy to stage, yeah? Oder Siegfried, Act 3. Yeah? She wakes up, yeah, mein Gott, when does she finally stand up if she's lying? So, how elegant does that look? And then what are they doing? They're singing and singing and singing, and they don't come to the point which one would wish that they came earlier to the point, whatever. So there you need it. You need it so much, and then it could happen for me that I feel that there's nothing happening on stage, and I get also quite tense, and I try to put more energy into it because I think from the stage doesn't come any energy. Then it gets difficult for a conductor.
And for the band playing under.
No, yeah, but for me more because they say if he does more, then we give him probably more. That's so no, but it's all my job then, and it's It's a good question, yeah, good question.
What about the scene in Act 2 of Valkyrie, where Brünnhilde appears to Siegmund? And there are all those sort
wonderful.
But it's wonderful, and there's
the same.
There's a kind of a parallel with Waldschauung in Act 1 of Götterdämmerung, which you were talking about yesterday.
It's a parallel, yeah.
But how do you maintain that tension through those silences when it's just the timpanist? Are you completely in the timpanist's hands, or is there anything you do about it?
Before, that was a wonderful advice Wolfgang Wagner gave me. Before the Todverkündung starts, the chorale, you know, with the da 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 da, you know, with the timpani. There is quite a long interlude. Mein Gott. And Wagner writes slower and slower and slower and slower until you arrive at this Todverkündungschoral. And Wolfgang Wagner gave me the advice, you know what you should do? You should, in any case, not become slower, even become a little faster. And I do that always. I try to be and then I try to be not too slow with the beginning of Todverkündung. As some of the secrets after a while you feel, even if they are not written in the score suggests you something else. Wagner himself certainly, I don't know what he said to the conductor who conducted Mottl, and I don't know who probably they were not so slow, and I think that is something we have to decide. Yeah, that is conductor's thing. If it is slower, means also that, I mean, emotionally it gets slower because the notes are longer. Yeah, so that does not mean that I have to do very much slower, because then the Todverkündung can be a long piece. You are right, and it is without any tension. Yeah, there are some points in these operas which depend then too from the staging. Yeah, Todverkündung staging, for example, is also, she comes from I don't know where, from the back. Was jetzt? Is she running, and is she? What are they doing? And that's what you really, and you want to see something. There is a change of the scene, and this is really, there are some problems to solve. Yeah.
So it sounds very much as if you were in favor of intelligent Personenregie or Personenführung,
yes.
But not sort of a stage cluttered with sort of conceptually significant objects. Is that would that be a fair summary?
I'm what I would like to have, and I was lucky to have, done productions with Götz Friedrich, You could talk to him very, very well. And if somebody understands the music and knows that it is kind of, I give you something, they give me something. It is kind of like of ping pong playing. And then things go well. For a conductor it's the same. If I have my ideas about tempi, which I certainly have, but then I meet the singers, and I find out that the singers, or one singer, is not able to sing it so fast as I would like to have it. What can I do? I could say goodbye to the singer, but if the singer is very good and I find out it doesn't work what I thought about, then I do the tempo which is good for the singer.
I'm glad Barbara has mentioned the word Personenregie, because by which we mean the character interaction, the way the characters interact on stage in terms of gesture and motion, all the rest of it, because this is so crucial to the whole concept of Regietheater. Because until the director had a primary influence in production, Personenregie was, well, the characters, the singers, were left to their own devices. And so they would traditionally bring their own productions. They still do in many opera houses, in some opera houses. But what you got was as good as they brought. Whereas when, in modern productions, a director, a good inspired director, is working with good singers, good singing actors who are alive and responsive to what's going on. And the best of them are, you've mentioned John Tomlinson, and one could mention Bryn Terfel or Susan Bullock. If you speak to them about working with good directors, they say this is what's absolutely crucial, this Personenregie, this interaction. And that, as I say, is central to the whole concept of Regietheater.
But you know that it comes to my mind, when we hear so often the word Regietheater, I think it's already a little démodé. Yeah, I think we are already over that. It was a phenomenon which now comes to an end.
Because it's become the orthodoxy.
So is es.
So where do we go now?
Yeah, that's the question. Yeah, that's the question. I'm quite happy that that we are now looking for different things. Yeah, there was a long time you could continue the Regietheater way. Yeah, there were not every piece was done in this way. Yeah, with the Neuenfeld's way and so, and even Neuenfeld's now becomes calmer and I mean the Lohengrin was a masterpiece in Bayreuth. I found it a masterpiece. Once I got to terms with the Rats, and then it was a masterpiece from Personenführung. Yeah, I've rarely seen something like that between Elsa and Ortrud, and Act 2 with these wonderful, one in black and the skirts and dancing around each other on this stage. I mean, that is something which is really very unusual.
And what you're saying is one has to differentiate between good and inspired Regietheater and the less inspired. And we've all seen examples of the less inspired, where people were mentioning examples in the interval over tea, and they're legendary, I suppose. One thinks of Carmen as some kind of presented maybe as a kind of lesbian gothic vampire. It's a concept that doesn't make any sense. No. But I honestly don't think these examples are often adduced. But I've been watching opera for decades, and I've so rarely seen these. I don't know where these ideas come from. It's a kind of caricature of Regietheater at its worst. What we're talking about is differentiating between those ideas which are generated possibly by directors who feel they have to make a mark, they have to have something to say. And I think the vast majority of productions that one is experiencing these days, which are far more intelligent and astute and trying to recover something of what these works mean to a modern audience.
Yeah. I mean, I found the example of the Baroque opera, of the Semele, I found that wonderful, the ABA, the A thing. It is It was great. She was looking, and then the bottle. Oh, nice that I have the bottle, and before no, and so as a wonderful, yeah, and perfectly to the music, yeah. It was very musical,
and for a modern audience.
So is this. And Neuenfeld's and also Götz Friedrich. I mean, Götz Friedrich was extremely musical, and sometimes he had. One could talk to him quite well, yeah, and say, could we this and that, and so, and he would listen, yeah. And Neuenfels is extremely musical. But I think what you said also before, Chéreau knew the piece very well, and you feel that in every moment, yeah, you feel that in every moment. Probably it is because some of the Regietheater followers are not as musical as we would wish them to be. And certainly there is the score and the piece which has to be done as Wagner has written. And don't forget, I mean, a conductor cannot take instead of trombones saxophones, or I don't know, it can change the instrumentation. Nobody would allow that. That would one say, yeah, you have to play Tristan in the pit, and the singers have to sing Tristan. I mean, one gets really upset if, I don't know, you change around. The tenor is Tristan, Isolde, and Isolde is a no, it is not possible. So you have to respect the score. And so the only thing you can change is if the score and the staging, also if both of the conductor and the regisseur and the conductor, they are both convinced that they want to work together. I think that's also something. I'm not a big fan of conflicts, you know, between these leading people. That's something then which appears in the newspaper, that there is a scandal and somebody shouts at the other and says terrible words after a premiere and whatever happens, and terrible, yeah. And I think also for the piece and also for the singers, yeah. Don't forget, I mean, also singers are very sensitive people, not only conductors and orchestra players. And if they see that the conductor fights against the regisseur, then it is a very bad atmosphere.
I'm interested to hear you say something about how you work in the rehearsal room. Are you there from the start of rehearsals? How much do you work with the director?
No, I look, with Katharina Wagner, that is the best example I can tell you. We have musical rehearsals in the beginning. I come always when she does a new scene. Yeah? She says, now, today I'm rehearsing Isolde Brangäne, Act 1, both the scenes and the Covenal watching or whatever. And then we do it musically, and I have 3 assistants, one or two, one on the piano and one who is conducting. And then she says to me, listen, go to the swimming pool or go something, come this afternoon because now I'm going to work. Yeah? And they go down the stairs. No, too early. You stop the 3rd step. Please stop. No, it's not good. Go to the 4th step. Yeah? I don't have to be there. And if you have this wonderful collaboration, then you can save some money.
Can you be more specific about the form the collaboration takes? I mean, to what extent are you making suggestions for movement?
Aber natürlich, yes. But we speak about that before. Yeah. With Katharina, I have had already 3 years before, we knew somehow how the thing would be. And 1 year before, we had the whole Bühnenbild on one of these extra stages in Bayreuth. Nobody could see them. The whole construction was in these halls already there. And we went there and we went through the whole piece and we said, so Tristan is in the beginning there, and Isolde there, and and so. And then she completed her concept of all these things. And therefore, then I can leave the rehearsal, and she doesn't need me to watch her working. She comes also to my first orchestra rehearsals. After the run-through, when I do the corrections, she goes. And then at the end, all the rehearsals are together. The Klavierhauptprobe, where the piece is done with piano once, and there are always possibilities to say, up there I don't see well, or a singer probably can say, yes, it's unpleasant for me, I don't hear, or I don't have a contact. You know, there's always the question of these wonderful televisions on stage, which it can drive you crazy as a conductor, because, you know, that is something I really need your eyes for, because I want to make music with you. And then she looks all the time there and doesn't look at me. It looks to that I cannot do that. Please don't look there somehow with your eyes, but I need the direct contact, somehow. But it's impossible that the television's over there and the conductor's over. So, other places, you decide about them before, can be done this way. For example, Tristan third act, it was clear where Tristan goes back to these triangles. It is all choreographed, but step by step. Yeah? He knows which word and which part when it gets rhythmically difficult. And then we said, listen, there he has to watch me. Please, no television. And then he arrives at the point before. He can look, he does something, not staring at me, but in any case, having with me a direct contact. This is a dream of a collaboration.
Katharina has come in for a lot of stick at Bayreuth. Do you think she's a good intendant?
Sehr, yeah. She is, all the Wagner family stuff, which also is unfortunately, as a collaborator and as a friend of one part of the family, you are a member also of the love and hate play. And there is very much envy. Yeah? Don't forget that. It is a battle. It's a war. Who is leading the Festspielhaus? It is a war. It's a world war. And now we have one leading woman, and there's other people who don't lead the Festspielhaus, and they are certainly unhappy about that. And they are also unhappy that other people like the actual intendant. No, she's doing a wonderful, wonderful work, and I mean, she learned everything from her father, and I was, that I was very close also to her father in the last years, and I learned a lot from him, and she always tells me, without her father, she would not know, and she has to know, about all the details on stage, where the lights. So she has to tell the technical director exactly what he has to do, like her father did. Yeah, but she learned it from her cradle. Yeah, she was a little girl when she. Yeah, and then her father was up to when he was 85 or 86, before 2 or 3 years before his death, he was so clear in his mind, yeah, and he would come every performance. I remember I'm in the second floor, the conductor's little rooms in the Festspielhaus, and I remember 10 minutes or 20 minutes before the performance, I knew, this is the steps, and I already said, Herr Wagner? Yeah. And then he came. And it's a very funny story to tell you. There is a shower. It's like I don't know, it's very simple. But after the performance, you have to shower because it's necessary. And you are alone there. I thought I was alone. Came out of the shower, out of the room, and wanted to go back to my room. The door opens. Who is there? Mr. Wagner in his, you say tuxedo, we say smoking, yeah, whatever, yeah, so it's black tie. And I was there like that, nix. And he would say, it was, I think, after Meistersinger performance, and then he's, listen, tomorrow I have to talk to you about that, there, and das, and das. And I said, Mr. Wagner, and then he said, I've seen a naked man in my life. And continued, ja. Der hat gesagt, ich habe einen nackten Mann gesehen in meinem Leben. So. And then he continued and spoke, so tomorrow, can you come to my office at noon? Went on, so good night. So then the door closed and I stood. Yeah, das ist typisch, yeah. Typical stories, yeah. He would go everywhere and would control if there was enough toilet paper and it really, but it's an intendant of the old school, yeah. And he would.
Now you're the new music director, which is
Yes.
a post that hasn't been held for many decades.
Yeah.
How's the dynamics of that going to work? I mean, may we ask who's going to be responsible for casting and who for production?
We together, Katharina, I give her advice, and we would do all the auditions, and we try to get the best conductors. I was not sure if I should do that job, because everybody suspects if a conductor is there in the leading team, then he will avoid certain colleagues because they know. We asked everybody you can possibly ask. Some of them couldn't come. Some of them are not free, but we are still. But we have wonderful conductors in the next year, and going on to the all the next productions. And we have wonderful singers. And I wouldn't have done this wonderful work with her if there was not the same taste with singers. Yeah? We always have noticed years ago when still her father was there, and we sat next to each other with a vorsingen, and we looked after 1 or 2 minutes, we looked to each other, and we knew what we were thinking. It was always the same direction. And now we have, I think we have very good singers for the next years, and were many complaints about singers, but you know, you hire them now, but you don't know how the voice is in 3 years. Yeah, that is not our fault. Yeah, but then everybody writes, oh, the quality in Bayreuth's not that what it used to be. Yeah, excuse me, a new Birgit Nilsson, I don't know. We have Nina Stemme, she's wonderful, but she cannot return. So we have other wonderful singers. So we have, we have to hire them now. Yeah, and we don't know in which state they will be. Can also be that the voice grows. Yeah, and for example, our Tristan this year, Stephen Gould. And he always did that with me already the Ring and so, but he got more voice and developed more voice, and we were surprised when we heard him on stage after some years that he hadn't sung in Bayreuth. My God, how much this voice developed and how well it sounds in the house. So there are also pleasant surprises. And I'm a little bit occupied with the orchestra. So in choosing together with the orchestra members, you know, there's always a big meeting, and then you discuss certain things because they have to come from all these German orchestras, and some of them cannot do all the rehearsals, which can cause some serious problems. And therefore, this is really a puzzle who comes from Dresden, from Berlin, from Frankfurt, and from Hamburg.
Is the orchestra playing on a performance and plays for a rehearsal, as sometimes?
No change. There was once a rumor that was changing. No. It can happen if somebody has an illness or so, but the main players remain.
About the brass, because you
always
talked earlier about the how forcefully they have to play because of their positioning in the pit. Can they really? They give the same play. They have bumpers, presumably. They have extras who can.
Listen. Who comes to Bayreuth knows the whole repertoire. So if the first trumpet cannot play, there will be another first trumpet who will take over. But the colleagues will tell him, will tell him if he hasn't played the rehearsal. But you would never take a player who doesn't know the whole repertoire, because it can happen. I've had that in my performances too. That for a Meistersinger performance, then a new first oboe came in. I said, I don't know, he's ill. Well, no, we have a substitute. The substitute was good. We have the first oboe from Dresden, played it without any problem, and so. But you have to be sure that they know the piece.
I was thinking not so much of them not knowing it as the effort of playing with that force.
No. This is Bayreuth experienced players. You see, because we don't have only one trumpet. We have 3 first trumpets or 4. So they are all Bayreuth experienced, and they know exactly what they are doing. So if you play, and we have mostly players who played the pieces already. There's very rarely, sometimes a new player is coming in, but only if there are 3 others who are very experienced. So the new younger one can be tried out in a certain way, but the others would be there if something.
So they can carve up the scores.
Oh yes, because otherwise it's much too risky. It's like for a conductor, you cannot. Somebody who has never conducted there would be so confused about the sound that nobody can jump in, and that is always a risk. It has happened only once until now. That in the year in which Hengelbrock did the Tannhäuser, an assistant had to conduct. This was the first time in the whole history of the festival. Usually you try to go there and you try to conduct even if you don't feel well, because even the assistants who have not so much experience with conducting, it's a nightmare to conduct there without rehearsal. And there was somebody who jumped in and who did it very well, but then Hengelbock was again there. But you know, in the summer you may eat something which is not good, and can happen.
We are moving towards the point where I'm going to ask the audience for any questions. But before I do that, can I just ask one final question? In your book, you say, and you've talked very eloquently about the family tradition and the atmosphere of Bayreuth, and at one point you say, anybody who doesn't go along with that usually drops a brick. I think the German word, Barbara will correct me if I'm wrong, that you use is Fettnäpfchen. Have you ever dropped a brick?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. Sometimes you say things which you should not say, and I remember now. I know that Gudrun Wagner, the mother of Katharina, told me that when I was an assistant, I would sit in the audience and would have my legs over the next Lene, yeah? And that she would come and would say, "You don't do that here." So I don't remember this scene, but obviously, no. Everybody behaves well. This also, it's a miracle, you know. That's everything which has to do with so-called stardom. Yeah, being a star is sometimes, some people misunderstand that very much. Yeah, being difficult. Then, yeah, you have to be somehow strange and behavior and don't show up for the rehearsal. These things don't happen. Also because one is very strict with people who. It has happened in the last years once or twice, and then they were not re-invited. Because the most important thing in Bayreuth is, after the music, is the family feeling. Yeah, it is that everybody, and you sit also, if you go to the restaurant, the Kantine, you know, the little restaurant which inside is, everybody sits with everybody. It's the girl from the telephone line, it is the secretary together with the Heldentenor and the choir singers, and everybody sits together. The conductor sits, and we sit the same bench together with stagehands and with everybody together. And it is very important that there is this feeling we want to have a good time, because everybody is not well paid. It's not something to earn money, and we come there because we just like the Wagner music so much. And nobody is a star except one, yeah. But this one star is dead since 1883. Yeah. So, and no one else behaves or misbehaves, and you cannot believe how well that functions. Yeah. And then when is after, you come as a conductor to the orchestra rehearsal, everybody wants to play, yes? Nobody who comes in and says, "Oh my God, today Tristan." No, the people who don't want to come, don't come. So you have an orchestra which is willing also to have the rehearsal shorter. That means that they play extra well. Yeah? Come to the first rehearsal, and sometimes you think, "My God, you didn't forget that did last year." You do some spots after the run-through, go home. Yeah, it's only because of that, and that is more important, or as important as the music. And then there is no false kind of, certainly everybody adores Wagner, but it's the kind of the holy atmosphere. It's not that. It's a kind of a summer camp, which turns when the Generalproben come up and all these people come, and disturb us, then you get quite a little nervous. And for the first night, mostly the Generalproben are more nerve-wracking than the premiere, because in the Generalproben are mostly old singers, experienced singers, Intendanten, agents, and so people who really know the business. This is the best public. For the opening, as you know, it's a big event. People come and are well dressed and whatever, politicians come. And some, obviously, also some journalists, but it is more important what people say after the Generalprobe. and it goes around. So the voice goes around. One knows already it's going to be this direction or this direction. You don't know if the tenor is so good the day of the premiere, but don't forget the premiere is transmitted, radio and everything live. I mean, when I'm not there and do it, then I sit at the radio and I switch the radio on, and I guarantee you I have always cold hands, even if I'm not conducting. And I think I know how they now feel. You see, 10 minutes to 4. Yeah, orchestra tunes and so. Then the conductor comes a little bit earlier, 5 minutes to 4. I know how that is. You sit on this stool and you wait. Yeah, and then the light, 3 lights, and then what goes out, and then you have a red light on your pult. The red light goes on, that means begin. But these minutes are really special. You sit and you wait for that, and then it goes, the radio, it goes directly, there's nothing you can do. Everybody hears that. But it's interesting, if you do it, sometimes you think, oh, okay, you have to be so concentrated like a horse. Yeah? Don't look there, just go there. After the thing, you think, what have we done? Yeah, but it's part of the job, and then it's no summer camp anymore. And that's a bitter thing sometimes. Everything is wonderfully relaxed until the Generalproben and the premieres. And then there is a different, and everybody is very concentrated, but if you have a wonderful human contact, that's what it is about.
And then when you get into the 3rd and 4th weeks of the festival,
that's nice.
Then that sort of relaxes into it, doesn't it? And it gets it.
The performances get better. I would suggest always but as it is an old experience, a premiere is mostly not the best performance. Can be, yeah, because the adrenaline is in the right amount available, yeah. But if there's too much adrenaline and too much nervousness, then it's better you come to the 3rd, 4th, or 5th performance. Everybody is well rested, and it is especially after, if the rehearsals were tiring, and so you have enough time in between. But if I will have to do this in 3 or 4 days. I cannot relax totally. I must say, I relax, I sleep, but I know we are living for this moment now. Yeah, it's 4 o'clock, July 25, and there's no discussion. Yeah, and you eat days before. You eat properly. You don't drink alcohol. I don't drink alcohol 3 days before, and I really try to rest, and the singers the same. Yeah, they don't want to cancel the day of the premiere. Then it is not a joke anymore.
At that point, we bring these proceedings to a close. So to Peter, to Barbara, to Matthew, to Barry, but above all to our distinguished guest, Professor Christian Thielemann, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.